Do I look like a librarian? Your value in traditional and non-traditional settings, thanks to Ms. Julie Horst. I read this book, The Librarian's Skill Book by Deb Hunt, and I thought, I was so excited about it. I was trying to tell all of my librarians. And Julie helped me put together a program. So today we have Deb Hunt, co-author of this book, also director of the Mechanics Institute.
Yay, I love the mechanics.
And Ed Hosey, deputy circuit librarian for the Ninth Circuit.
And to help you know what Julie's influence is like, I'm her boss.
Yeah.
And she got me to come in here to speak.
So I would like to introduce Deb Hunt.
Whoops, we don't have a picture yet. Okay, so unfortunately, my co-author David Grossman, we had talked about him. He's in China right now, so you just get me, and hopefully that'll come up. And I tend to walk, and I have notes because I'm so passionate about what we do and what we can do. Come sit up front. There's lots of chairs. That I would talk forever about this, as I'm sure Ed would as well. So I have a quote. Hopefully it'll come up. It's coming. Okay, good. It's happy. I'm just really happy to be here because I haven't hung out with my NoCal colleagues for a while. I tend to be an SLA Bayonet person, but I've seen so many friendly faces of people I know. Okay, there we go. So I need somebody. Tina, can you read that quote for us, please?
Librarians and information professionals need to be defined in terms of the value and benefit they provide to their organizations.
Okay, so everything we do is transformation equals value and empowerment. And we all know that we're being asked to, so I got a lot cut off the T there, that we're being asked to do more with less. But really, it doesn't matter what kind of library or organization type we're in. I do consulting work as well as now work as a library director in a nonprofit. The bottom line still matters. So you know that whether you're in a for-profit legal firm or you're in a not-for-profit, your stakeholders want to know what the value is you bring to the table. So I'm going to tell you a story about do I look like a librarian. So I do a lot of consulting in digital asset management, enterprise content management, and this is about 4 or 5 years ago. I was working with a global architectural firm that's headquartered in Sausalito. And they brought me on. I usually come in at about the 50,000 foot level to help them think about how they're going to solve the problem that they have 3 terabytes of data and images, but they can't find any of them. So their younger staff goes to Google Images, gets images, puts them into client reports and proposals, and they're totally ignoring copyright. And they get in trouble for that. And yet they have, 300,000 images and photos and drawings, but nobody can find them. Because they're just, they're ingesting them, but nobody's curating them. The same stuff we do, right? As librarians, only we tend to use print or digital assets and get them cataloged. So I was working with the president, actually, of the company, and at the end of this, what I did is a needs assessment information audit, recommended software for them to help them get a handle on their dam, and then I always recommend they hire a librarian. And I remember the president said to me, I'd given him the job description, I emailed it, and we were talking about it, and he goes, a librarian could not possibly do this work. And I said, well, I want to remind you that MLS on my card, he knew this, but he'd forgotten. And so they hired a half-time librarian who we brought to interview. It was somebody actually who'd been an intern for me when I was at the Exploratorium. And he knew architectural firms, and they said, we will hire him for 6 months at half-time. Well, recently, they've been wanting him now to go full-time for the last 3 or 4 years, but he had another architectural firm job he loved, but he's finally gone full-time for them. They got it. He had to prove himself, but I told them, I said, he will prove himself, don't worry. And now I'm working actually with another global landscape architecture firm that designed the 9/11 Memorial, has won awards in Australia and done a lot of stuff. And so now I'm trying to convince them. I'm back in the same place saying you've got to hire a librarian. I'm calling it a damn librarian, digital asset management. I have given talks at DAM conferences called those damn librarians, but it's DAM. But anyway, so we have to think about the value that we bring, and we have to continually demonstrate the value we bring to our organizations. But that said, the title librarian is still an important one, and it's one that many of us still have. I've come back to the Mechanics Institute. I've been in and out of libraries most of my career, mostly outside of libraries. I was at the Exploratorium for 14 years, but only 2 of those years did I have anything to do with the library. I was a digital asset management specialist. I was a senior information specialist. But I've always used all my librarian skills to do all these other things, but I've just taken them to the next level. But I think, here I am back with the title library director. But when I saw the Mechanics Institute, I knew that was a place that I really wanted to work. And I can tell you more at lunch. I'd be happy to tell you all about the Mechanics Institute. It's a wonderful place. So where are we going? If we don't know this, you know this. If you don't know where you're going, you're not going to get there, right? So we have a lot of forks in the road that we can take. So I really encourage you to think about the places that you can go. And we want to control that, right? We don't want anybody else to control that for us. So I want to talk a little bit about how we're going to get where we want to go. And I hope you'll all be thinking about where we want to go. So we have to be proactive, taking control of our work and our profession. So I want to know, it's a question for you to ask yourselves, are we exploiting and taking advantage of the opportunities in our work and in our schooling? So I don't know, is anybody here still a student? Okay, so are we being proactive and saying, I can do that? I can do that when you see something come along. That's how I got into digital asset management. Another senior information specialist and I wrote a grant at the Exploratorium. The 40th anniversary of the museum was coming up. And we said, we know about organizing assets. It can be digitally born, it can be even print. It'll become digital and stuff that got scanned. And what brought this on was I remember when we, this is when the Exploratorium was still at the Palace of Fine Arts out by the Presidio. And we had gotten office space. The graphics department had gotten so big. They had beautiful posters for exhibits, analog posters, but they ended up throwing away a lot of them because there was nowhere to store them. And the software they had used to create them was very archaic software. So there was no way to reproduce them. So a lot of stuff got lost. And we kind of went, ooh, as librarians, we couldn't stand this. These are beautiful paintings. Well, these were amazing posters and, PR pieces for exhibits and different things that were going on. And so we got this idea that we would start looking around. We got a huge IMLS grant. It was like a 5-year grant. And we did Institute of Museum and Library Studies. And we did this huge dam project. And we learned, just like I learned coding there, we said, we can do this. We will take this on. And what was really great was all the staff in the museum trusted us. Even though we weren't in the library, they knew we were librarians. Everybody trusts us. This is a great cachet. We have to remember that we are trusted by most people as librarians. That's where the elder really does come in handy, I think, anyway. So we have to be able to think about the things that we will take on. Now, I know we all are busy, right? We can't take on one thing. Here's my motto. Let's go with the stuff nobody else cares about. Because if you don't, you'll drive yourself crazy. We still drive ourselves crazy because we do a lot of stuff, but that is something that you really need to think about, is letting go of that stuff that our stakeholders don't care about. Because if we're being busy with that, that takes away the opportunity to take risks, and to raise our hands and say, I can do that. Did I know how to do digital asset management when I said I can do that? No, but I leveraged that into a whole other part of my career by learning. We read everything we could get our hands on. We talked to our colleagues who were really happy to share. Let's face it, we all love to share with one another. That's why we're here, right? So you're not alone when you decide to take on these other things. And the other thing, because I still have my company, Information Edge, I'm a crazy woman because it's after I leave here, I'm going to go home and my home office and do a bunch of consulting work for a damn client. And I have a full-time job as well, so probably during lunch I'll be checking emails. But I love that. I'm crazy. My daughter and son are living with me temporarily while they're house hunting, and she goes, do you ever sleep? And I said, you can always sleep later. When you're busy, you got great stuff to do. But what I want to, as a consultant for years, and even at the Exploratorium when we didn't have funding, I always paid my own way to go to conferences and to get the education I could. I got certified as an enterprise content management professional. I paid for that myself. I did that on my own time. And I'm curious, how many of you have paid for your registration to come here? Okay. So I'm really glad you're all here, but I really applaud all of you that paid, and I'll tell you why. Here's my motto: invest in yourself. Do not depend on an employer or anybody else to pay your way. So if you're going to go to the AALL conference, or maybe you're thinking about going, and your employer is not going to pay for registration, I mean, what I do with my staff is I say, here, I want some skin in the game. Why are you going to a conference? I've upped the budget every year since I've been at the Mechanics Institute for my staff to get professional development, because I believe in it and I believe in supporting them. But I usually can't pay 100% because we have 8 full-time librarians, and I send paraprofessional staff to things too. So I say, okay, I'll pay your airfare and registration if you pay the hotel or something like that. We do that. And then when you get back, I want you to report out to all of us what you learned and what can we all learn from that. So we've had a really good culture of that. So my motto is invest in yourself, and I'll tell you why. You may not have your job. I may not have my job. I'm an at-will employee next week, next month, or next year. Are you going to let a current employer determine your career path? So that's all I'm going to say about that, because I'm really invest in yourself. Can you tell I'm passionate about that? Okay. So how do we transform ourselves and our jobs and the places that we work? And I love the keynote this morning. I just caught the end of it that Melanie talked about, this how reinventing ourselves and thinking about who we are. So important to talk about the value. We are not accustomed to shouting from the rooftop the value that we bring to our organizations. We need to do that every day. Our stakeholders need to know why they are paying us, why they're supporting our information center or our library or whatever it is that we do. And I loved what you said this morning. You're going to let what's your name? I'm sorry. David said he was going to think about letting LibGuides go because they were just, the analytics showed they weren't of worth. So it's all that effort that went into that. You got it. You're going, you know what? I'm letting that go because the stuff that shows my value is here. And that's what we have to do, is let go of that stuff and improve our value. But it's really important to think about, again, letting go of the stuff nobody else cares about and doing the stuff that our stakeholders do care about. Don't know what your stakeholders care about? Ask. One of the first things I did when I came to the Mechanics Institute was I said, so what do our members want? And everybody kind of, well, we think they want this. I said, when was the last time we did a survey? It had been 5 years. So I said, okay, we're going to get SurveyMonkey and we're going to create a survey. We tested it. At that time, we had about 4,400 members. We have 4,600 now. We got 794 responses, which is a really high rate. Of course, I'm all about incentives. We had a $75 gift card to a nice restaurant in San Francisco that if your name was in the hat, if you did that, if you wanted to leave your name as part of the survey. We learned so much from that survey. We just recently did a lapsed member survey. And then I just sent out a survey last Sunday. We use Constant Contact and SurveyMonkey, a couple of different things that we use to gauge what kind of program people like at the Mechanics. So you always got to stay on top of this. Do I have time to do this? I make time to do this. I've made myself the SurveyMonkey Pro in the Mechanics Institute. So it's something that I just have added on because I feel it's important. This was when I was 2013 president of SLA. This was my theme for the year. It was about the strategic value that we bring. So you need to really think about this. Am I an investment or am I an expense? This is what our stakeholders ask every day. And we know that when the recession hit, a lot of law firms closed and their libraries went away, right? So we need to make sure they know that we are an investment, not an expense. So every day you need to ask, you need to forge a brand and then communicate and demonstrate that brand and your value. So you need to make sure that you speak a language that your stakeholders understand. Do not use library terms. Know the business of the organization. Know how the organization works. Know where your skills are needed and can add value. Remember, raise your hand. You've got skills that can add a lot of value in your organization. Know which services are needed and how they should be delivered. And then know how to consistently deliver those services that you have or your expertise. We all have a lot of expertise. We need to remember that. We've got a lot that we bring to the table. So we need to continually express our value and what we bring to the organization. And so the other thing too, and I know especially it's true in law firms, is we want to make them look good, right? And make their lives easier, because when we are seen as the person who is the expert or brings value in a certain way, they're going to keep us around because we're making their lives easier and making them look good. So we need to step up to the plate and deliver results and envision ourselves as a key member of the leadership team in our organization. You may not be on the leadership team, but you can aspire to that. And I believe me, you will get there. I didn't start out as a library director. We all are in different places, but aspire to these things. So we have to act like we're an important part of our organization. And what I'm going to challenge you to do, we talk a lot about this, David and I, in our book and in the classes that we teach based on this book. We need to be the professional we want to be. And here's the best way I can think to describe this. Do you want to be perceived as Walmart, or do you want to be perceived as Nordstrom? Where do you want to fall on that? Now, if you're perceived as Nordstrom, it doesn't mean you're expensive, though you should be, because if your value to your organization is high, they're going to be willing to pay you what you ask for. And the other thing I'll tell you to do, negotiate. If they won't give you a raise, maybe budgets are tight, you can say, well, can I get another week of vacation? Think about negotiating. Everything is not in black and white until it's in black and white. When I went to the mechanics, the salary was a nonprofit. I'd come from consulting. I just said, this is a place I really want to work, but I'm not going to get 2 weeks of vacation. I'm at an age and a time in my career that I'm not. So I negotiated for 5 weeks of paid vacation. So that's the sort of thing. Think about the ways that you can leverage your value to your organization that might not always be monetary. Think about the things that you want and need in your career. Speed up here. This is this slide deck will be up for all of you to see. Our colleagues in SLA's DPHT, it's Pharmaceutical and Health Technology Division. They did this a few years ago, and it's great. It's Librarians and Adjacent Careers. It's a PDF that you can go and get. It's fabulous about how our colleagues are thinking about different ways to, and I can do a whole workshop on parallel careers, so I'm not going to, don't have time for that today. I want you to look at this world and think about where you fall in here. What do you bring to the table in your organization? What are the things that are important? So think about that. Okay, the competitive advantage that maybe you bring. Demonstrating our value, that's all that I've been talking about. The thing I really want you to think about is that we need to engage our users on their terms, not our terms. If you've got probably a lot of your international firms, so you've got offices in other places, are you willing to come in early or stay late? You know, to make things happen and to communicate with clients who might be in a different time zone or even a different country. This is the thing again about the Nordstrom versus Walmart. We need to be really comfortable in our own skins that we add value. It took me a while to get there, but boy, once you're there, it's a great feeling. It doesn't mean you're conceited or you're overblowing the things that you bring to the table, but it means you're being realistic about here's the value I add to this organization. And if you're not comfortable with technology, I would encourage you to become comfortable. In fact, I should have given you my Twitter handle at the beginning. I don't see anybody tweeting it. It's funny, different conferences, I go to SLA, it's like all those who are under 30. They're hardly listening to the speaker. They're so busy, you know, tweeting and stuff. And I do it, and I do watch the streams, especially for the ones I can't get to, you know, when there's too many concurrent sessions. But you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be tweeting all the time or on Instagram or anything, but know how they work, know why they work. If you have a young person in your family, talk to them about it. They will tutor you, or a young person on your staff. Okay. What's your name?
Anna.
Okay, can you read that quote for us, please?
We must find a way to involve ourselves in projects, products, and plans that not only ensure continued employment, but also have an effect on the bottom line and have maximum impact on the organization. We must effectively align ourselves with the primary objectives of our organization.
Okay, so this was a great article, even though it's from 2009. It's timeless advice from reinventing ourselves for success. So I encourage you, you can go find that online very easily. It's in the, out there in the open web. So we really need to be agile enough and to think forward enough to be able to be valuable. This is one of my favorite images ever. Chad Hymas is, he's in a wheelchair, I think he has an MS, but go to his site, it's pretty amazing. But I don't know about you, I do want to change the world. I'm all about changing the world. Forget the status quo. Let's make a difference and do things the way we want to do it. And magic really does happen outside our comfort zone. So I'm going to challenge all of you to think about, do you want to change the world? And that world could be at your firm, your organization, or it could be in your home, it could be whatever it is. Think about how you want to change the world. And let's see, who can I get? Sharon, can you read that one for me?
Excellence is never an accident. It is always a result of high intention, sincere effort, intelligent direction, skillful execution, and the vision to see obstacles as opportunities.
Okay, so it's really important to think about when you see an obstacle, is it a stumbling stone or is a stumbling block or a stepping stone? Whenever I run into an obstacle, I go, okay, am I going to let this control me or am I going to take control of the situation? And you can't always take control, but think of it as a stepping stone to either get a skill, talking to somebody in a way you haven't talked to them before, or bringing some new idea to the table. I'm really passionate about what we do and what we do as a profession. And I have homework for you guys. Sorry, I teach at the community college. I'm all about homework. And this will be on the slide deck, but I want you to think about the skills. What skills do you have that you can learn or improve upon to move in this direction of thinking, who am I and where am I going to go in my career? And how when will you do this? I mean, we all have busy lives, right? We're all super busy, but make time, even if it's 30 minutes a week, carve out some time for yourself. Downton Abbey's over, so you got Madam Secretary's on. I don't watch much TV, it's like the 2 shows I watch. But make time to do this. Think about things. And for those of you that are walkers, I mean, I tend to walk, I don't take technology with me, but a lot of people do. You can do podcasts. There's all kinds of stuff that's free out there that you can do. And then think about the skills that you already have in your toolbox and that how you can expand those. So for example, like I'll go back to digital asset management, same principles as organizing other kinds of materials that you can do. And then I'm just going to close. This is a shameless plug for the book that Mary, I do have copies here. They're $20 if anybody wants one. I will sign them if you would like me to. And thank you very much. I will encourage you, this will be in the slide deck, to join the Career Sustainability group that's on LinkedIn. If you are not, I'm curious, how many of you are on LinkedIn? All right, way to go. So that would be the first thing I would tell you to do. Okay, and I've taken way too much time. Shall I turn this off?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Okay, I got my first. Thank you.
All right, thank you for a damn fine presentation.
Got it?
Yep.
Okay, good.
And thank you, Mary, also. I won't stand up too long between you and your lunches. I know we're running a little late. Deb made a good point about doing more with less. I've actually got our boss to stop even using that phrase. We do differently with less. And we try to find the things that we've been doing that we don't need to do anymore. We unfortunately are a large group of, well, large by our standards, 48 people spread out over 9 states. It's really interesting to try and coordinate the efforts of all those people to try and save money, save time. As a matter of fact, in just 2 weeks, we're getting together in Phoenix for our branch conference, which is our only time to get to meet face-to-face together. Now, those of you who do not recognize me, my name's Ed Hosey. I'm the Deputy Circuit Librarian for the 9th Circuit. I've been a NoCal member for 25 years. But I'm more of a lurker. And when Julie approached me about this topic, it's one of the few things I've had a lot of experience with in the last few years. So I decided this is a chance for me to give something back. What I'm going to speak to you about are the initial stages of the application process, the cover letter, the resume, and how to approach that process. My focus on it is very narrow. I've worked for the Court of Appeals for 25 years. So I've been interviewing for library positions and for some support staff positions, not in an academic setting, not in a law firm setting, but I still think some of what I'm going to offer you is going to be helpful. I only have about 10 minutes worth of commentary, so I'm hoping that if you have something to toss out, either in agreement or disagreement, please feel free. If you can't hear me or I'm not speaking clearly, raise your hand, I'll slow down and try and help. I'm going to approach this both from the view of the applicant and from the recruiter. I'm going to tell you a little bit about, because my experience is mostly from a recruiter's perspective, but I do recall when I had to apply for jobs. You should first know I'm not a professional HR person or recruitment person. I've had to take these duties on because someone needed to do it in our court. And it has been an interesting educational opportunity. I've redeveloped my career a little in that regard. And I've mentioned that it's a very narrow perspective. And I'd also like to say, I've made every one of the mistakes I'm going to tell you about. I've made them in applications for jobs, and I've made them in the recruitment process, trying to get people on board. Okay, let's start. I think it's safe to say that everyone in the room has participated in a recruitment from an applicant's perspective, right? Has anybody managed to get a job without having to apply for it or interview for it? Okay. How many of you do recruitments from the other side, who do it selecting people, okay? How many of you do it semi-regularly, once or twice a year? Okay. I would be interested in particular in getting your feedback if you have any thoughts about what I say. Everyone else I want to hear too, but I want to hear those if you can all. Recruiting is a laborious and costly process. Anybody in here disagree with that? It takes, actually I think it's more laborious than anything else, but in our case, we have to do coordination in a remote location in some places for the states, well, the areas outside of San Francisco, which means getting a local librarian, if we are lucky enough to have 2 librarians in the location, judges involved, clerks of court involved, my boss, me, all for telephone interviews first. Actually, we don't get the judges in every one of the telephone interviews. My boss and I and the librarian do that. But when we get to the on-site interviews, it's bringing in a lot of people, and it's a lot of time. It's a big investment. It really helps if both the applicant and the recruiter take some thought ahead of time to make it less risky for the cost and for the labor. As Deb was mentioning, know yourself. Know where you want to be, know what you want to do. And that will help you as you start looking at the various vacancies. Now you could cut some corners. Hey, I can apply for anything, or I can just put out a very basic job description out there and see who applies. We've had people apply. I'm a dental hygienist, but I love to read. From the recruiting perspective, our boss has a phrase he likes to trot out every now and then, and with good reason. There are worse things than a vacancy. Now, from the applicant's point of view, there are worse things than not getting the job. If it's not a good match between you and the position, it's not going to be worth your time or the recruiter's time. Okay. Has anybody ever ended up with a job that was not ideal for them? Yeah, or an employee that wasn't a good match for the organization. Well, here are a few strategies that might help. For the applicants, read the job descriptions very closely and honestly assess, do you have the skills that are required? If they have listed requirements, that's going to be the judgment factor for anybody who's expressing interest in the job. Then look at the desired qualifications. And then, if you have those, consider going ahead with the application. Do you want to work with this institution and company? Do research. Find out if you like them. You know, do you want to work with the judiciary? Do you know a lot about how they work? And this also goes into your research about getting to know what is out there, how to expand your field, how to expand your opportunities. If you're in the fortunate position to do so, only apply for the jobs you want. Now, I know we don't all have that luxury, and some of us are actually stuck with, I have to put as many applications out right now as I can. Especially if you're finishing school, you're going to be definitely looking at a lot of different places. If you have the luxury, great, you should be focused on those. If you don't, take a look at the ones that you're considering and find the ones that are less appealing. Put those to the side, focus your energies on the ones that really speak to you first, and then as time permits, go to those others. Recruiters, be as realistic as possible in your job description. Highlight the skills and abilities that you expect the successful candidate to bring to you. If you have other things you want, list those as well as requested. We are kind of constricted in the judiciary. We have one basic librarian description that applies to a lot of different types of librarian positions. The people I supervise are the branch librarians. The only variation really in those position descriptions are, is there travel involved and do you supervise? And most of our librarians do travel at some point. So we use the preferred skills to actually mold that vacancy announcement to get us people who can see they are interested in these other things than the standard one that we've got for our cookie cutter position. Now for the application process, if there is an application and you're completing it, make certain to read it carefully and closely. If they ask for a cover letter and a resume, supply it. If they don't forbid it, supply it anyway. But only supply the very basic information that you feel applies to this job. Look at what they're asking for. And know personally from your earlier assessment, I want to do this. And I have experience that will allow me to prove I can bring something into this interview. Don't inundate them with information. I could be really happy you took that early 20th century French literature class as an undergrad and you got an A- in it, but I don't care about it for this particular encounter. I have had 40-page applications with school records. It was just, and I thought, this is how this person's going to communicate with our judges. No, they won't. All right, if you take nothing else away from this, do not use a form cover letter. Do not. I get them. I mean, I receive them. I don't get them. And this pretty much negates monster.com and its equivalents. And by the way, was there ever a worse name for a company to try and bring two people together for a new relationship? Monster.com? It just isn't going to work. This has to be a very personal approach that you're using. You have to sell yourself as the individual that these people want to get to know. If you're going to use a previously used cover letter and edit it, and I don't recommend you do it, take out all the references to the previous job.
I think they would do that.
I've received several applications where someone is talking, they put at the heading that it's a court library position. I've always wanted to work in your firm. Write a new cover letter directed at that specific position. When you're drafting the letter, mention the current vacancy by name. Make sure you understand it. You've already done your research on the company, hopefully on the position. If you have connections within that company or institution, use them. Find out what people are looking for. Explain why you're interested in the position, the organization, and if appropriate, why you're willing to relocate. Because certainly in our case, when I'm interviewing people, I interview people from all over the country. When we had our Honolulu vacancy, we had a lot of people who were interested, and you find out on the second stage of the interview, they didn't really think what it was going to be like living on an island. And we ended up doing that recruitment more than once. But we've got someone great there. If there's an application to complete, read it carefully, complete the sections fully. In my office, we're seeking people who know technology. I don't look at handwritten applications. I know a PDF form can be a challenge to some, and if it is, you're not a good match for our vacancy. If you're going to put in your cover letter, I have a good eye for detail, or I'm a great proofreader. You damn well better be sure you don't have any typos or grammatical errors in your application, because I'm going to look for them. Because our judges really want people who have a good eye. I have learned this firsthand. I've had a judge inform me how many times he will have someone look at something before he gives it out, because I gave him something that did have a typo. Okay, recruiters, when reviewing the application, and applicants should still listen to this. It's a rehash a little bit, but look to see if the applicants followed all the instructions. It's going to give you an idea of what it's going to be like to work with. Have they supplied all of the information you've requested in the format requested? Have they addressed the requirements of the position, some of the wished for qualities? Have they explained why they even want the position? Not just if they're highly qualified for it. I get a lot of letters where people say, I'm highly qualified for this, I have this, this, and this. Well, great. Why do you want it? Why should I consider you? Tell me this. I need to get to know you. I'm looking at a lot of applications, and I want to hear why you're the person I should consider. And back to the recruiters, are there typos or grammatical errors in your application? Is their written communication style clear? Do you want that person representing you to your peers, to in our case, the judges? That's something you really have to consider when you look at these things. The applicants who stand out for me are the ones who explain why this specific position appeals to them, why they're interested in the judiciary, in our case. Those people have obviously done some research, given some thought to it, and they are really interested. And I'm taking them at their word. I take everyone who applies at their word. I have coworkers who will occasionally doubt that someone really means something. It's like, I'm sorry, they say they can do this. I'm taking them at their word. These people who have given this extra effort to get to know about the organization and to describe why they want this vacancy, those people have given an effort that deserves my effort as well. And they're the people I'm most likely to be interested in speaking with. I'll wrap up with saying that there was an article in the Spectrum, volume 20, number 3, February 2016, page 44, and it is practical tips for your best resume. So it's a very brief article, 4 or 5 tips on it. Definitely worth looking at. Now, does anybody have any questions or comments about what I've said? Yes, please.
So I have a question.
Yes.
So I have been in the unusual position of applying for more than one job that I wasn't really qualified for, and I think that you have as well, based on your speech. I felt able to do the job and that I had some relevant experience, but possibly not able to make all of the required categories, and I have always applied.
All right, from our perspective, if someone doesn't meet the requirements, and our requirements are very minimal. You have to have an MLS and a year's experience as a law librarian in some of our positions. I can't consider you for the position then. I'm just not allowed in the government. Now, I don't know what it's like in the other parts of the world. But obviously, if you think you can do the job, by all means, go ahead and apply, because you've given it the thought that says, I can do this. I can become this position, the person who holds this position. But as far as the vacancies we have, I can't consider anyone until they have the MLS and English experience.
I think it depends too. I don't want to steal your thunder, but that's one of the reasons I love working. I have a lot of flexibility. So if we see a candidate who we just think, wow, this person would be great, maybe they're still in library school or they don't have exactly, they've done all cylinders, we're going, they're great. And that's one of the differences is we're not constrained by civil service or some other or academia, because I've been in academia. The thing that I think maybe you've done if you've gotten those jobs is storytelling. It's really important. So you can say in a cover letter, I saved the library, $10,000 by consolidating all of our online services contracts. You want to tell a story. You don't want to just say I saved the library $10,000. You want to demonstrate how you did that. So storytelling in a cover letter is really important because they'll go, well, maybe they don't have those desired qualifications, all of them, but they have the minimum, the ones really, here's something that we could really use somebody who knows how to negotiate license fees or contracts or something like that.
I am in a position where I hire student employees, and our application process is pretty minimal form. So I need to find out what I need to find out in the interview. So do you have insights into what are some good questions and how to figure out if the student really will show up on time all the time?
I'll admit that when I agreed to this, I was a little disappointed in that it doesn't go beyond the cover letter and resume aspect, because that really is where we get to know our candidates as well. As far as that goes, if they give references, and I would require references, that's who I'd contact, to say, were they regular, were they dependable?
And what are, I'm not a professional HR person either, or the farthest thing from it. What are the restrictions around what you can say as a reference? Having given some references, I've been given guidelines that you can say, yes, they worked here and they worked here from this date to that date. But it's not really gonna tell me much, unless they only worked there for 3 months, in which case I'm gonna think, well, you have fired them and thank you for your time.
And I would say from my experience that basically if you call a reference, you understand what they are and are not telling you. In our example, at the courts, we basically funnel them all to our HR person who will tell them the period of work, the level of their pay and all those things. And that's all that's given out. Have I been asked by people outside of the office about someone that is applying? Yes, I've been asked, and I've tried to be professional about it. And I'm sorry, you
I just have another question. You know?
Go for it.
I just have to, I'm relatively new, and I'm for a vendor, even though I'm a librarian, so don't ever gas me. Sharon, I'm a decent person, right?
Oh.
But they just gave me a new team to fill out. I get to be having this team where I don't know anything about kind of filling positions. And one of the things I run into, it's not so much the requirements or the skills or anything else, it's more of a cultural fit with the rest of the organization. So I've been trying to, glean from the interviews and stuff, but also in the job description, we use buzzwords like dynamic and, not a normal day, and things like, this way, is there any way you can maybe give some hints about, what you would assess as a better cultural fit? Because they could be perfect. And then you could just be like, well, when it kind of boils right down to it, I just don't think they get along with the people that are already here. And, that's hard to do when you say, look, you're qualified immensely, but, you're just not that kind of friend. I don't know what that is.
Soft skills instead of the hard skills.
Yeah, kind of like that, so I don't know.
And as a corollary, as an applicant, how can you assess the culture of the
Storytelling is huge though.
Yeah.
So you can say, I am willing, if it means that I have to travel 50%, here's how why I can do that. That sort of thing. I think that's what you're looking for.
But I think the organization can tell you that too. So think about, how do you interact with your coworkers, and how could you put that in 120 characters or something?
Something like that, yeah.
Right, just to say, this is how because people understand what does teamwork mean, or
Exactly.
interact a lot
They're all
with our
buzzwords like
coworkers.
team player.
And the introvert is not going to be.
Yeah, like,
And I would
you can't write no introverts. You just,
Library.
Exactly, see, and that's what I think.
I would also
I was just saying, it's like, you can't
hesitate to use the word cultural. I would hesitate to use the word cultural in the fit description. You can feel that someone won't fit in that position, and it may be for those soft reasons you're talking about. But at least in the government, if I were to use the word cultural, it would just be inappropriate.
Yeah, so I'm just.
But we do decide, are we going to be able to work together? Are we going to be successful? I don't want to bring someone into a position and find out that they're unhappy there, or that my judges are unhappy with them. I'm sorry.
No, I don't want to end it, but I think.
We will be here, so if you want to talk.
You're staying for lunch.
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, bombard them with